Thanks for joining us. I'm Mickey with Roombldr. We're here today chatting with Kevin Wagstaff, a longtime friend of mine. Semi-retired, is that right?
We're calling it semi-retired. Yeah, it's good to be here, man. It's a lot of years in the making.
Thanks for coming, man. Yeah, Kevin is, I'll say, an informal advisor to Roombldr. Is that correct?
Yeah, I am having more fun getting involved with your business and talking about it than where the stage of my business is at, to be honest.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. I'm having fun as well, learning a lot from you.
Yeah.
The reason I wanted you to join us today, I think what you've been through from a business perspective is so unique. Obviously, there's some ties with construction and the real estate market and whatnot. So I think there's valuable information and insight you have. But I just would like to hear your story, and I think it'd be important for a lot of our listeners to hear that also. Yeah. It's such a cool, unique story. As a friend, I'm so proud of you, man. I know I've told you that multiple times, but I just I love hearing about it. I love seeing your success, and we'll love to share that with our listeners.
Hey, man, appreciate that. We've talked about this for a long time too. We used to dream, 20 years ago, talking about the future.
Retail store,
Yep. But for context, so my brother and I started a home inspection software company 8 years ago called Specotra. And for those that don't know, if you buy a home, whether new build or existing home, you get a home inspection, right? And you get the home inspector that comes out, takes pictures, tells you what's wrong with your home. So we found a gap in the marketplace 7, 8, 9 years ago when a friend approached us and said, hey, my dad's a home inspector. His software is frankly shit. I think we could do better. And so we started researching. I started talking to home inspectors because I was a realtor at the time. So I have a real estate background as well. I was a realtor for about 6 years in Denver. Not a rainmaker by any means, but did enough deals to be in the business and understand it. And then we just did the bootstrap story, man. It's kind of like a good kind of like American dream story. We put $2,000 in each, bought the domain name, and started talking to home inspectors and building the software. And that was in 2015.
Wow.
So we're a lot of years in the making. And so over the years, I'll fast forward through a lot of boring parts. We grew, we've gotten up to 70 employees, probably do about 15 million in revenue this year. And we recently hired a CEO this past year. So my brother and I are now just on the board, hence the semi-retirement you referenced. And so I'm kind of taking time, one, to just like wind down and like slow down my nervous system, because working all those years and being in the grind and sometimes working 70, 80 hour weeks. I mean, the startup grind, it's a lonely road.
Yeah.
And there's days where you're like, what the hell am I doing? This isn't working. Then there's days where you're like, I'm working my ass off. This is amazing. I'm making things happen. So I got unique insight into kind of the existing home sales world. Obviously, I watched mortgage rates every day for like the last 7, 8, 9 years. And so I'm always thinking about who's buying and selling real estate and also how it impacts the new home sales market, right?
Right.
Within the world you're in. And so it's like, I'm always thinking about builders, what state are they in, watching interest rates. So I'm now at the point where I'm freed up to be able to do some other things that I enjoy. And obviously, like, being involved with your business is awesome. I'd love to be involved more. But yeah, I'd like to hear just where you're at with everything with Roombldr and kind of how things are feeling given this crazy market that we're in with interest rates, right?
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind the last 2 years for sure, 2+ years. I think it's trending in the right direction. We were talking about some of those sentiment numbers earlier, and it seems like sentiment is getting better. Obviously, that isn't the final say-all to this, but it's been a challenging environment, and more so than even 2007. I heard that in the builder world, the new construction world, that some of those numbers were worse than the recession. So kind of having to navigate through that. With Roombldr, we started about 3 years ago, and at the time, the real estate market was on fire. Builders were selling houses left and right, and honestly, that was kind of our problem, was because we were coming in with this new idea and this service solution, whatever, but they didn't really need us. Like, we're going to sell the home regardless. The interest rates are so low. It's, there's so much demand, and they're saying, like, this is cool, we're interested, but like, we're selling houses regardless. and then to just totally flip, like almost a legit 180 in like a year, in the span of a year, when interest rates started going up, to now their businesses are, they're tightening up. They're looking for ways to be more efficient, and so having to be patient with that, because again, we're almost in a sense like what you guys were doing. We want to provide value at the end of the day. We want to what we're doing, we want to help them with their end product. So we have to be sensitive of the environment, for sure.
So let me get this right. So I remember this time when I'm thinking back. So builders, when interest rates were basically near zero, homes were just flying off the shelf, right? So they were like, oh, we don't need a value add like a home gym and custom equipment and all that. And that interest rates literally over the span of 6 months spiked.
Yeah.
And then they were tightening the belt. So I'm curious of your entrepreneurial journey through literally those two, like that year was gnarly, was it not? I can't get them on the phone because they don't need me. And then, okay, I can get them on the phone and talk to them, but they're tightening the belt. Yeah. Like, what was that like mentally as an entrepreneur? Because there's probably entrepreneurs listening.
It's tough. It still is tough. Obviously, you don't want to take it personal, first of all, because, you don't want to be like, well, do I have anything? Is this even valid? Like, what am I doing here? Yeah. You can't get that low. And just continue to be patient and find different ways to stay in front of customers. That's part of the reason why we're doing this podcast, to be honest, too, is just finding different ways to inform and to shed light on what we're doing without being too pushy, and being respectful of their business. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind for sure. I feel great. I feel even more positive now, having gone through that, to be honest with you, because now knowing what the builders were going through, to still be successful. So I feel a lot more positive having gone through that, and hopefully the future is better. We'll see.
I think it will be. I was looking at numbers this morning. Basically, new home sales jumped 4.1% to a seasonally adjusted rate of 738,000 in September. So like, that's a high watermark since like May 2023 is what I'm seeing, which for new build, this market's so interesting to me because existing home sales, so like basically someone just going on Zillow and buying an existing home, is as worse as it's been, as bad as it's been since the recession of 2010. 2009, 2010. But then new build can't build fast enough. What are you hearing from builders in terms of the environment? Because on one hand, it sounds great for them because existing home sales are just it's been a recession, and it may only get worse with interest rates where they're at. Yeah, good point. I mean, and I think where our market is so unique too, being in Denver, being in Colorado, it's just such an attractive market for new builds and for people to want to move to, that it still seems pretty strong. And to give them credit, give the builders credit, they've found ways to make it attractive for people to still buy. They're working with them on their rates, buy downs and whatnot, providing more amenities and upgrades, things like that. I feel optimistic about the future, the direction it's going. I think the new build industry was also up. Last I saw, single family starts increased 2.7 to 1.03 million on a seasonally adjusted annual basis. So that's great. That's a healthy market. We're still underbuilt in many markets, and especially in the lower income side of things, but it's still trending in a pretty good direction. Because it sure seems like affordability is better now for new builds, at least in Denver. I only know our local market really well, but like, is that true? Because if they can buy down the rate to say 4 or 5%, and obviously existing home sales are just, the price is insane here. Yeah. They just keep going up and people keep moving here. Right. So builders, it seems like they're in a decent position, at least in Denver.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about a competitive market, is that hopefully it means the prices should go down, which would attract buyers. Yep. So yeah, there's good and bad for sure, but I feel like we're kind of through the dark parts of it. So yeah, challenging, but we're finding ways to provide value and to survive and to keep going forward, and
So I'm curious to get in the mind of a builder. I'm always like thinking how they think in terms of like for your business. So what are some things they think about when, say, you talk to them about Roombldr? Obviously not like a Roombldr pitch, but like I'm curious what their objections are, what they love about it in terms of like a home gym, because health and fitness is at the forefront of my mind lately. Obviously, being semi-retired, I'm like, how can I get in good shape again? How can I work out? Look at my home gym, and it's like kind of underwhelming. Like I've talked to you about it. We were supposed to do something.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
Get there.
It's just a sad room that's not used, but maybe it's because it needs to be better. I need better equipment in there. That's part of my problem. But just curious how they are thinking about these value adds, like a home gym with custom equipment in it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, yeah, it's like any other room, right? You invest in it, you design it properly, you think about it, you care about it, you're going to like it more.
Yeah.
It'll cost you more, but you're going to use it more.
Yeah.
So the home gym is no different than a kitchen or a bathroom, say, or a bedroom or a living room, whatever. If you put attention to it, you care about it, you're going to use it more. So that's really the end goal with this, is just, helping them provide these really cool rooms that people are going to use and love and like and eventually get healthier with, right?
Yeah.
That's the overall goal too with what we're doing, is we're providing a cool service, but it's also something that helps people. Sorry, what was the other part of that question?
It's how they're reacting to, if they're even thinking about these health trends, because I'm fascinated by it personally, especially after COVID. It was obvious everyone had to work out at home.
Yeah, for sure.
But now that that's passed, it's like, are they buying into the fact that people need to get healthier and want to get healthier?
For sure, yeah. In fact, so when I started this, I was actually in the building materials industry, working with builders and learning about that business, learning about the upgrade business, kind of all this whole process. And there was a big trend already happening with health and wellness at home. We were actually going to start this right before COVID, believe it or not. Like, I think it was the January of 2019 we're starting this. And then we start seeing all this stuff. We're like, let's hold on. Let's see what happens. Waited a year or two. And then, the trends were already going in the right direction in the new build world, and COVID just accelerated all that. I mean, obviously, as you know, people just were forced to stay at home, and they put more attention into their home, and the home gym was a big room during that time. So then more data started coming out from the National Association of Home Builders, what rooms that people care about since COVID, what's important. And I think home gyms were like one of the highest growing rooms. So in 2020, before COVID, popularity of exercise rooms, people they surveyed, was 27% of buyers wanted this room. After COVID, it was 47%. So 20% increase.
Huge.
Just since COVID. And I feel like it's gone up since then.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I don't think this is like a trendy COVID thing. I think it's people just are generally getting healthier, and there's more awareness around that. So back to kind of the launching point. So I was seeing more of this data as we were thinking about this idea and the trends going to health and wellness. And I came from the fitness equipment world, so I knew the brands, I knew kind of how the process worked, where the installers were, who the good partners were, and just kind of shot the gap. It made sense to have a business that focused solely on the builder, because it is so complicated, it is so different. The buying times are so different, everything's different. So it made sense to have a standalone business that kind of was focused on that. And then just took a shot and
love it.
Been going since.
Man, why it made so much sense to me when you told me about this years ago. Quick story time. I went and looked with my parents at new builds, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and over by Chatfield. And we would go into all these new builds, beautiful homes. We'd get down to the basement, and there'd be this like quote workout room, and it would just be like clearly not well thought out in terms of how painting the picture of how it could look. There's just like a generic bike in there, and then maybe like a mat on the floor, or like a couple dumbbells or a ball. And while I was like, oh, cool workout room, but I didn't know what I was missing in terms of like what like a kick-ass workout room that makes me excited to work out and motivated could look like, until you started talking about this. And then I saw like some really fully outfitted rooms where I'm like, oh my God, that's everything that's at my gym that I pay $70 a month for or whatever. And so it clicked where I'm like painting that picture for people of like, this is a room that can and will transform your health and life. It should be played up more in the new build kind of process. But I think do you believe the traditional model is like kitchen, bathroom? Like, I feel like builders like are similar to like the overall real estate market. And I don't mean this to be like demeaning or anything. It's like real estate's always behind tech trends and sometimes ways of thinking by 5 or 10 years. And we were part of that. And so that was part of why we launched Spectora, but they need to evolve, I think, to just saying like, oh, it's not just win over the wife with, say, the kitchen and bathroom. It's like, what about the basement, the man cave, the workout room, the backyard,
your health,
like that, your health.
Yeah.
Like making health front and center. Because obviously America, let's be honest, we're not the healthiest country right now.
Right. And yeah.
So I hope they shift those trends and start thinking of it more, because like I was not wowed with any of the workout rooms I saw when I was looking with them. It was kind of like, oh, I think we could like put this in there and that, and we had to do the work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm with you. I would see the same things, and I don't know if it was just my selfish mindset trying to convince myself to get this business off the ground, but I kept telling myself the same thing. I'm like, man, this could be so much better. Like I know how to do it. I could do it, and just how, again, kind of how it would work with the builder and part of the sale and the process and all that stuff is what we've had to figure out since then. But at least we've got kind of the back end and everything figured out to make it easy now for that to be part of the home buying process. Yeah. So yeah, that was part of the challenge as well. Again, not to get too deep into the weeds on our challenges. We could spend days talking about that, but
whole nother episode.
No one was really doing what we were doing. From a supplier standpoint, from a dealer standpoint, like nobody was helping builders do these kinds of rooms. So we had to convince them of that. And to your point about adoption, I think home building is usually like the last industry
to evolve.
Yeah, exactly. They always have like slower adoption curves and whatnot. And I get it. It's a long home buying process and building process. It's sometimes years to build a home. So it makes sense. But again, that's part of the battles we've had to fight and just finding ways to keep providing value and do different things. So
I'm curious about a random thing. Obviously after COVID, there's supply chain issues and construction costs exploded, right? Like I had a friend who bought a lot and he couldn't even build the home because the cost of building that home doubled. Yeah. Like literally doubled. Yeah. It sure seems like the few times I've checked, construction costs are kind of moderating, at least, right? In terms of labor and supplies, like that has to free up builders to do more, right? If costs are coming down and they can find workers to actually like build the homes.
For sure. And that's one of the probably still the major issues that the industry is having is just the materials costs, labor costs. But, as things continue to go up, eventually they can only get so high until there starts to be a correction. And we've definitely seen a correction with that stuff. So it is helping. But yeah, it was definitely challenging. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I again, being where I was at before Roombldr, we were dealing with a lot of that stuff and seeing that firsthand with the cost of stuff going up, and that trickles down to everybody.
Yeah, I think new builders are going to have their moment in the sun this next year. I really believe that because of the dynamic of where interest rates are at, affordability problems on the existing residential side, lowering costs for builders. I just think it's going to be a great next year or two. Yeah. Like you said, you're optimistic. It's like I'm optimistic for you and for the builder side of things, because those existing home sale numbers are looking pretty bleak. It's like 3.84 million again in September for existing home sales, and that's the lowest level in 14 years. So it's not a great look or time for residential real estate. Yeah. And you ask a realtor, right? It's always a great time to buy. But that's still a good amount of people buying homes, but just for context, it does feel like a recession on the residential resale side. Right. Whereas new builds it's kind of like a teeter-totter effect usually, is what we saw. And so I think that bodes well for the builders. Right.
Well, yeah, so I'm curious now, kind of back to what you learned at Spectora. Enough about me. I told you I wasn't going to try to talk about myself here, but you got me into it. So you guys obviously had to stay in tune with the macro environment, with data, kind of what's happening. Mm-hmm. So maybe talk to me about how you provided value. Obviously, it wasn't just an app. It turned into kind of other things, right? Yeah. It's full, almost a concierge support system for your clients with the website hosting and marketing and stuff like that. So maybe shed some light as to what you guys did, how you provided value, kind of what you learned, even mistakes.
Oh, man, great questions. Well, mistakes will have to be another episode because that can go for hours. Like as any good business, right? It's like there's so many mistakes and so much you kind of luck into and learn into. But so when we launched, it was, okay, this is going to be an app and software to help them do the inspection. That's where it started. It was do the inspection more efficiently, deliver a report to your buyer and agent that they can actually read and decode and say what do I actually need to fix? What what do I need to ask the builder for? Because a lot of people would get inspections on new builds and not use the builder's inspector.
I think, not to interrupt, but I think every time we bought a house, the guy, the home inspector, used Excel, maybe not even Excel, maybe it was Word, Microsoft Word. He just wrote things down even, like it was really handwritten.
Yes.
I don't even think I looked at it more than like 5 seconds. Just, is there anything major wrong?
Exactly. It's such a confusing thing. And again, an industry that kind of operated in the Stone Age. Like there was guys still using pen and paper when we got in the industry in 2017. So like that blew our mind to say, in the age of SaaS and software, there's still guys scribbling down on a yellow piece of paper and rip it off and hand it to you.
Yeah.
Because when I was an agent, I had a buyer that had an inspector that did that. And he handed me this like yellow carbon copy piece of paper. And I'm in the house and I'm like, do you have a digital version of this? Because I'm going to go home and work on the inspection objection. But like, you gotta be kidding me. You just paid $400 for this.
Wow.
And so that's why we got into the industry, because we thought it needed to be transformed and digitized and on a mobile device. So we started doing that. And once we got, quote, product market fit, which is basically that, like, hey, we found a better way to do it. They started asking, I'll never forget the day we had about 100 customers, probably, it was more like 10 customers. And this was like early days, 10 customers, still not making any like real money, not paying ourselves, just burning money. Customers said, oh, I love the software. I want to try it out. Like, do you guys make websites? And in my head, I was like, oh shit, we don't. But my answer was just like, yeah. They're like, right away. My instinct was just like, yeah, of course we do. What do you need? And then I was like, I got to figure out how to make a website. And so at that time, that was like a true like entrepreneur instinct of just like, he could have asked for me to order him a pizza, to like come to his house. I would have done anything. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to learn how to make WordPress websites and set up multi-site installs so then I can make hundreds of them in the future. So we started building websites for them. And then like literally the next week, he was just like, do you know anything about SEO? Like, can you help me like market my business online? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I literally the next day went to my brother. I was like, we got to make a plan for an SEO plan, because like I'm going to manage this guy's marketing and SEO, because I do have a background in that. I worked at Home Advisor for a number of years on their SEO team. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do that for you. $250 a month. Okay, cool. Guess we're a marketing company now too. So we just started adding these services based on what people were asking for. And so it grew that side of the business. It was making probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month before the software business took off even. So it was really just saying yes to customers and then figuring it out on the backside. But then from there, we grew the community. We grew Facebook groups. We kind of have like an in-house solution now where home inspectors can network and talk to each other. And so it really grew from there in terms of like a community and kind of like a new way of thinking of their business. And then it's a CRM for their business as well. So we just kept adding features every quarter, basically at quarter after quarter. We'd say, what is it missing? Oh, would you pay for this? Okay, how much would you pay for this? And just did that product work, and that just stayed so close to our customers. And that's probably the headline and takeaways, like stay so close to your customers to where they are like, wow, you guys obsess over how to make my life easier. Some of them have said, I'll just keep giving you money if you keep making my life easier.
Wow.
Because then they got to spend more time with their kids at night.
Exactly.
So that's a long-winded way of saying like continuing to ask those questions and get in the head of the home inspector, which I see you doing with builders, which is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's a super interesting point there. I love hearing it, man. I mean, and that's why you were successful. I think if most people could take that mindset that you just said right there, just stay close to your customers, find solutions, listen to them. Don't just think about yourself and say, this is what I want to do, right? Listen to your customers, where their pinch points, where they're struggling with, and then adapt.
Yeah.
Make it easier. It seems like a pretty easy recipe.
It's easy, but then it takes killing the ego, right? Easy, but not simple, or simple, but not easy, however that goes, because some of our early customers would say, we love you guys because you don't think you know everything. Like you're asking us, and it was like, well, one, we're not home inspectors. It was a gift that we weren't from the industry.
Right.
Because then we could come in with the beginner mentality and say like, well, how does your workflow look? Okay, you go through the house. Is that weird? Did you do the roof first, or do you go inside first? Like, okay, how do you swipe in the app? And just asking all these detailed questions. Whereas some other companies, I think they came from the industry, and they were like, we know what you want.
This is how you
should do it.
Exactly.
We're going to build it because we know better. And that's just the ego talking instead of like confirming it.
Right. And so you guys were fortunate enough to have success. You've been through what a lot of people have not, just a very amazing experience. You got to a point where you had private equity investors.
Yep.
You now are currently semi-retired. So maybe talk to us about like that part of the business, like what you learned through that phase, which again, I think it's just so important because not a lot of people have gone through that. So maybe from a business perspective, like what you learned, kind of letting go of your business, this thing that you built that you cared so much about and had success with, to now kind of letting someone else take it and say, okay,
yeah, handing off the baby.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
I'll start with like the zoomed out picture of what people's perceptions are of startups. For example, it's like most people, I think, read about Facebook and Instagram and kind of these like huge success stories that are what we call venture backed, where they take a ton of money and they basically burn money all these years. They literally lose money for 10 years, then they go public, and then everyone knows about them. Private equity I think the private equity market is multiple times bigger than the venture capital market. So like private equity investors, most people don't hear about them or know about them, but there's way more private equity money out there than there is venture, which typically invests in like Uber, Airbnb, Facebook. But private equity invests in businesses like yours and ours, millions of them that no one ever hears about. And so I didn't know about that world until about the 5th or 6th year of Spectora, when I just started getting emails from these like associates trying to bait me to just do a call with them, just being like, have you guys ever thought about taking money off the table and blah, blah, blah. And eventually I took one of those calls, and it was just really refreshing. It was insane to hear, one, how much money these private equity firms have to invest in quality businesses. And so for anyone out there operating it could be a plumbing business, it could be home gym equipment, it could be anything. They want to invest and make money, essentially. They want to double or triple their money, and they look for quality businesses. So we started having those conversations, and it started to kind of make sense at a certain phase of like, maybe we should take some chips off the table here, because we've had a good run. We've grown the company nicely. One, it's a risk reduction mindset of like, okay, let's take some chips off the table, because who knows what could happen. A meteor could hit, home sales could go down for whatever reason. So let's take some chips off the table, but then also get some expertise in our corner. These private equity firms have MBAs that just literally all they know is how to grow businesses operationally.
That's great.
They look at balance sheets, they got Excel spreadsheets, we've learned so much from them. So that was appealing, to say, have these really smart people in our corner invested in us, that know our industry, and we could take some chips off the table and kind of like set our family up, for life, which is great, a great feeling. Super fortunate to have that. And they've been an amazing partner. Like, it's just been, I think people have a bad rap sometimes, or people have a bad perception of private equity. I think sometimes people think, hey, they come in, they fire everyone, they bring in their own management, is sometimes the knock or the perception, but that hasn't been our experience. They've been great thought partners. They've literally helped us hire amazing people. They helped us hire an amazing CEO.
That's great.
And so that part of the transition, to answer the second question, was a little tough. I'm not in control anymore. Right. I'm not making decisions. The buck doesn't stop with me anymore. But I also killed my ego with that long ago. I was humble enough to know the things I was screwing up. I was clearly not handling certain parts of the business the way a seasoned CEO would. And I couldn't wait to get someone in the seat to say, oh, I've been here, I've done that. Oh, why are you doing this way? Let's change this up. Because I'm a freestyler. I'm a bootstrapper, where I just react. I just want to create value. I want to move quick and break things. Seasoned CEOs don't like moving quick and breaking things.
Right.
They want predictable, repeatable processes. And that's like having an adult in the room. And I love that. So for me, it was a little easier, but then the marketing side, I'm having to let go there and say like, okay, maybe not doing the podcast anymore. I'm not involved in the SEO anymore. And that took a little bit of killing the ego and saying, okay, it's not my game anymore. I'm just on the board. I'm just an investor. Very different mentality. Then I got to go do something today. I got to wake up and make something happen. Yeah. So that's been a fun transition. I'm still figuring it out, honestly, of like letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do now?
I wake up and have slow mornings. I read. I'm reading again. I read basically just like self-help and growth mindset type books. I'm reading some like nerdy books about economics and like the financial history of our country and world. But I'm researching more. You and I talked about like stuff with college sports and the NIL stuff. So I'm basically following curiosities,
Great.
which I didn't get to do for 9 years. I haven't done pretty much my whole career because I think you and I just started working after college, and then you just have a job. You know, it's like you can't really follow your passions, and you
Get a
just
family, get a house,
Yeah.
kind of build it out.
because when you have a job, it's like you're exhausted at the end of the day from doing something you probably didn't want to be doing, right?
Yeah.
We would get off work and we'd be like, we just want to go to happy hour, man.
Yeah.
That's it. So I'm following curiosities. I'm working out a ton to the point of home gyms, and getting in shape and the health trends. It's like I'm really focusing on the food I'm eating and trying to work out more.
Yeah. So what do you do for your workouts? What do you do for your health, for recovery, for your diet?
Oh man, could always do more. There's so many things to do, but I'm trying to, for one, get into yoga again, which I've done in my home gym. Done, throw on a video, do a yoga in the home gym. I'm running again, which, by the way, getting good running shoes is a game changer. I've never had good running shoes my whole life.
Me neither.
Did you?
That's probably why I have little knick-knack injuries
Exactly.
every time I go for a run.
My lower back's been a pain in my ass for so long. So I went and got some good shoes, some like Brooks Asics running shoes, and it's like allowed me to run. So I'm running, and then just like lifting and playing beach volleyball.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to just have basically like a good mix of everything. But then diet, at our age, 40s, it's like diet becomes everything.
Yeah.
So working on that recovery, I could do better on that front. Don't have a cold plunge yet. I'm not on that train yet.
You know where to get one?
I know. Yeah, you can help with that, right? Have a sauna. So I love that. Love getting in the sauna and sweating it out. Might need to upgrade on that too.
No problem.
you know where to go.
See, this worked out well.
Yeah, exactly. What about you, man? What's the routine look like for you?
Man, I mean, I'm in the early phase of this thing still, so working nonstop, trying to get this off the ground and going. And back to the one of the first things you said, it's so hard to unplug. You're just always doing stuff. You're always working. Someone said something to me one day, like, "Hey, how do you like stop working?" Like, well, it's actually pretty easy to stop working. Like, I could throw my phone in the desk drawer, go for a walk or something, and not work.
Right.
The problem is you just can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
So it's always on your mind, right? Even when you're not around your computer or at a job site or whatever, it's just you're always thinking about it. So I'm in that phase. Again, we're having success. Fortunately, we're now kind of through the hard startup phase, I think.
Right.
There's a knock, Brandon. But still just so much fun stuff, right? Like, I'm so fortunate now to be at this position and that we got through the hard, like, what is this? Is this anything?
Validation.
Kind of validation phase. So figuring it out, and hopefully the next few years here are a lot more fun. But yeah, workouts are tough. I also have 2 young kids, so it's really just about finding the right time, and that's very hard. We're starting sports, we're doing all that stuff, so like my weeks are just crazy. So fortunate enough that we built a home gym in our home, in our basement, and that's try to hit that 3 or 4 days a week. Try to play volleyball still, kind of do stuff outside of that.
Yep.
And yoga. Big emphasis on wellness and recovery now. I'm learning a lot about that, even from a supplier perspective. We're seeing a lot of companies kind of coming to us with new products in that space. I think that's the next big boom in this health and wellness space. It's not necessarily the fitness equipment, it's more so the wellness and the recovery. So the cold plunges, the saunas, cryotherapy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where people are starting to realize, especially older people, well, not older, but I guess we're older now.
More middle-aged.
Middle-aged. Middle-aged people like us, where things just aren't the same anymore. Your body hurts a little more.
Right.
You feel better when you do yoga than you necessarily when you lift or something like that. So there's got to find that balance between everything. And wellness definitely has a lot of upside with what's coming with products and technology and companies investing in that space. So
speaking of wellness, I just paid $250 for a Hyper Ice back wrap that heats up and vibrates, and I put it on every morning now. So it's feel great. I literally wake up while I'm making coffee. I wrap this thing around me, and it heats up and vibrates. And I'm like,
old, see?
well, and I'm pumped about it. Though I wake up and I'm like, I get immediate, recovery on my lower back because I had a friend that said it's a game changer. So stuff like that, right? It's like I think there's going to be a wave of products and hopefully these suppliers are all seeing what's working and what's popular out there, because I think stuff like that, people are thinking about longevity more.
Yeah. And kind of getting off on a different tangent here, but I've seen the fitness equipment industry change drastically just since the Peloton boom. I think they really were one of the first few companies to have really cool products and technology and marketing around it and whatnot. I shouldn't say that. There's been a lot of cool products and whatnot, but like they were just a little different with the software angle, the class angle. And they had a huge boom, obviously, in sales, and people love their products and really loyal to the brand. And it also attracted a lot of equity, private equity in fitness, stuff that I would never see, right? That I would never see. Now you've got private equity looking into fitness, with startups and with companies that are doing memberships and virtual classes, that kind of stuff more so. But now even more, even in the wellness and recovery phase, and the recovery segments as well. So like we're seeing private equity put money into that it's good because it creates better products and cool stuff that people want. So yeah, the industry I think is in a pretty good space right now for that kind of stuff. I saw, like, for example, Pilates Reformer that has like a Peloton style console where it has subscription classes or virtual classes you could do, and that's different because those classes that's hard to use those machines usually unless you know what you're doing.
Have you ever done a class?
I have once, and it's very hard.
My wife's dragged me twice.
Yeah.
And after the first time I quit because I was like, I'm demoralized. My legs are so weak.
Yeah.
Just getting my ass kicked.
So different. Yeah. So different. It makes you come down to reality.
I was humbled. I was like, I am not strong.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. That's bringing, I guess, whatever's outside of the house, we should assume that's going to be brought inside the house, right? With this trend. Is that fair to assume?
For sure.
Like the tonal and like all these things where you can do everything at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So money, I think being invested into the industry is a good thing. It's just bringing more products, more cooler products, more things that people are looking for. So anyways.
That's what I love about what you're doing though, is because I think builders and home buyers they get overwhelmed. Maybe they just don't know what they don't know about all the options. And they're like, what's a tonal versus a Peloton versus an assault runner, treadmill? Like there's all these options. I'm even overwhelmed by it. And they need someone to break them down.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot now too. That's the downside kind of is, a lot of companies and a lot of new companies and a lot of import companies saw this boom that was coming around health and wellness and fitness. And so there's a lot of options for sure. We're fortunate enough that where we know the industry. We've been, I've got a business partner who has a commercial division, a commercial company who, they do amazing installs in these hotels, these gyms, these schools, apartment complexes. So like we know what brands are really good, which ones are innovating, which ones stand up, right? Because that's the other thing is like we have to service this stuff that we sell. So we're not going to sell stuff that, is junk.
Right.
It has to stand up, especially people's homes. So anyways, we've got a really good source for product that sees it firsthand on the commercial side, sees the trends, sees kind of what's coming, and then we just do the same thing in the home.
That's amazing. It's dope.
So, yeah. I don't really have anything else for you. Anything else you want to talk about?
Man, this is great, by the way. I touched on a little bit of just like the economy and the health of the markets. I think the outlook is good. I want to hear from builders though. If there's builders or vendors listening to this that see otherwise, I'd love to hear their opinions. I love hearing people that are out in the field and on the ground, you know what I mean? Because like you and I can look at economic numbers and say, oh, consumer spending is trending higher or sentiment is up. Right. But like, are people buying equipment? Are people, putting down payments on new builds? Like I like hearing this on the ground kind of perspective.
I'll bring one in.
Boom. There we go.
Problem solved.
All right, man.
Well, thanks, man.
That's awesome, dude.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks
appreciate it, brother.
Appreciate your time, man.
Yeah.
Congrats on your success.
Let's do it again.
Sounds good.